Hello, you're watching I-24 News, coming to you live from Tel Aviv this hour. Thanks for joining us as we get to the latest here now. We look at the Honduran president, Juan Hernández, in Israel today for the inauguration of his country's embassy in Jerusalem, following up on his pledge made last summer. This will be the fourth foreign embassy to open in Jerusalem in just recent years after the United States, Guatemala, and Kosovo. Prime Minister Bennett will meet with the Honduran leader this morning before attending the embassy ceremony. President Hernández will also meet later with opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu, who played a large role in facilitating the symbolic embassy move. We'll cover it live when Bennett and Hernández meet ahead of the inauguration in just about 3 hours' time. And we go to our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman, in Jerusalem today, I believe at the site where the embassy will be located. Owen, for the viewers, what led to today exactly? How significant is it?
Well, you're right, David. We are in the technological park here in Jerusalem's Malcha neighborhood, and behind me you can see the building where the ceremony will be held to dedicate the embassy. And yes, the embassy is set to be housed in this compound. As for what led to this, of course, the first step was the move by the Trump administration to bring the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem 3 years ago in Israel's 70th anniversary. And the expectation was that many countries would follow suit. Of course, we didn't see that many. We saw the Guatemalans come soon after, and of course, they've stayed in the Holy City. Paraguay come and then subsequently leave after a change of government there. And Kosovo come here in recent months, along with their establishment of relations with Israel, deciding to put their embassy here in Jerusalem. And now, of course, the Hondurans joining suit. The rationale for the Hondurans, in some ways similar to that of Guatemala, David, a government that's heavily tilted toward evangelical Christianity, a strong evangelical Christian presence in Honduras, as there is in Guatemala, a right-wing government that has a strong affinity to Israel, and in the case of Honduras, David, a president who is himself a graduate of Israel's Mashav program, of a program run by Israel's International Development Agency. So he has a personal sentimental attachment to Israel. There is also a bit of a quid pro quo here for the Hondurans. Israel has opened its own embassy in Tegucigalpa, something that was not true before Honduras moving its embassy here. There's a promise of stepped-up Israeli cooperation in Honduras in fields like tourism and, of course, in internal security, a very, very important field in Honduras, which is suffering from a significant problem of crime. And also, we should say, whose government does not always have the greatest human rights record in terms of its relationship to its public. So Israeli companies acting in that field will have to be very, very careful. So there is the promise of stepped-up cooperation, but I don't think that this is explained only by that. There is a political element, a religious element, and a personal element here, David, that I think is really driving this move.
And we know along those lines that former Prime Minister Netanyahu, now the head of the opposition, played a large role in crafting those relationships and in working with the Trump administration here. So now we know that in terms of Hernández's agenda today, he'll be meeting with Prime Minister Bennett, but also later with Netanyahu?
Oh, sure. That makes sense. And you're right, David. Netanyahu certainly had a role to play here, as he did in the other moves of the embassies, and certainly in having some role to play in the original move by Donald Trump of the U.S. Embassy, which, of course, was the catalyst for all of this to happen. But, of course, it is happening on Prime Minister Bennett's watch. So Prime Minister Bennett will, of course, as you mentioned, be meeting with President Hernández, will himself be attending and speaking at the ceremony. Again, it's all happening over the next few hours. In about an hour's time, Hernández meets with Israeli President Rivlin. An hour after that with Prime Minister Bennett. And then at around 12:45, 12:50 local time, just about 4 hours, a little bit less, we'll have the embassy dedication ceremony itself.
And we'll be covering much of it live here for our viewers on I-24 News. Owen Alterman coming to us from Jerusalem. Thanks for the updates.